Welcome to Leaders in the Light. This isn't just another podcast, this is a revolution.
We're Amy Shaw and Cara Calvin, two female entrepreneurs who refuse to settle. We've built businesses, taken risks, and rewritten the rules. And now we're bringing you with us.
This is for the women who have done playing small, who crave real conversations, raw truth, and unfiltered wisdom from the ones who've walked through the fire and come out unstoppable.
We're diving deep. The risks, the breakdowns before the breakthroughs, the mindset shifts, and the bold moves that separate the ones who dream from the ones that do.
This is about power, expansion, and community. It's about stepping into the life you were meant to lead without fear, without limits, without apology.
So if you're ready to wake up, own your story and rise, you're in the right place. Hit follow, leave a review, and share this with the women who need it. Let's amplify our voices and lead the way together.
So welcome along everyone to Leaders of the Light, Meet the Founder episodes, which is really exciting because Amy is going to start, and she is a really amazing human being. Not only is she extremely successful in in business, and has had so many successful businesses of her own and worked for many, which you'll hear about. She's also very gifted spiritually, which is something that I can't even explain to you. But we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're going to talk a little bit about Amy's upbringing, family life,
pressure.
All the things. But she is an amazing human, and I feel very privileged to be on this journey with her. So we're going to delve in by starting off talking about Amy as a child.
Oh gosh, right in there, eh?
We're going to do it chronologically. Okay. So hopefully your brain will be able to
you keep me on track.
Bring you back. But we're going to start off as Amy as a child. The things that you remember as a child and how they shaped you into the amazing human being that you are today.
Oh gosh, that's a big question. Right, I probably should have read the prep questions that you sent through for me, but anyway.
Roll with it.
Amy as a child, as a child I grew up between two homes. So my parents separated when I was younger. I was very young, before 5.
Yes.
So obviously that shaped me in different ways. I was very close with my family, so I spent majority of the time with my mum, and she was an incredibly hard-working woman. So she worked multiple jobs. She worked very, very hard to be able to keep the house afloat and all of those sorts of things. So she was really selfless through that time. She didn't have a huge education herself, so I think she met my dad young, and she came from the coast and all of those sorts of things. So I think that programming from a young age, watching a female having to struggle that hard, changed something within me, and I think that shaped my career and my masculine side to be like, I will always be able to provide for myself.
Gotcha.
So I think that was like a really big lesson through all of that, watching the struggle. Obviously, was immensely proud of her looking back as a mother myself now, as a business owner, as somebody who is financially stable. That was never not going to be an option for me.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think that really shaped me, and then obviously spent time at my father's as well. So between the two homes, I had a really close-knit relationship, which I still do with my brother and my sister.
And they're older than you.
Yes, I'm the baby. Yes. I was the wild one. I'll probably go off tangent here, but I will. Then once I was old enough to leave, at 17, I got on a plane. Yeah. Actually, the first time, surprisingly, didn't last that long. I think it was only a couple of months, ran out of money, partied a little too hard in Sydney, and Dad had to book me a flight back saying, I'll get you a flight back and we'll get the next one back out. Obviously, it was a one-way ticket, so off I came back here, worked very, very hard, saved up, and then my shining armour, my best friend Sam, me and him moved to London and did some big travels on the way there.
I love that. And what was the catalyst for the move? Were you always planning to go to London?
Are we going to be honest? Yeah, it was heartbreak. Came out of my first big love, pretty broken. Lots of lessons through that one there, and made a phone call actually to Sam, which to this day is going to make me well up. And I said to him, I need your help. I need to get out of here. And he'd previously said to me, anything you need me to do, I'll help you in this situation.
Amazing.
So I rang him up and said, I want to move to London. And he said...
It's quite far away.
Yep. And I said, I just want to go far. I want to experience life. I want to do all of those sorts of things. And he said, I'll call you back, and hung up. And I thought, is he fucking kidding me? I was like, I just asked for a lifeline that you've been offering. And then he rang me back like 20 minutes later and he goes, yeah, cool, I'll come if we can do 3 months of travel through Asia. And I was like, done. So then that was us, and we were off. So I've wanted to travel as long as I could. When I was in Sydney, I worked for the General Pants Group, which was a huge foundation for my business. It was Bondi Junction. It was the top performing store in Australia at that time.
Yeah.
That was in the days where they had big budgets and we'd go to parties every Friday night and everything was flowing and it was wild. But I learned a lot through there. I had an incredible mentor there, Travis and David Manor, two incredible males that shaped me in my retail. That was my first sort of large retail experience. Both of them have now gone on to do incredible things, really big leading jobs in their own companies. So I was really blessed to have them. So I worked at General Pants and worked my way up there. Obviously, wasn't really good at selling and all those sorts of things. Started working into the VM and all of that. And then when we moved to London, I started working for a boutique and helped her get that off the ground.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And how long were you in London for?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah. It was wild.
I can imagine.
Yes.
And what made you come back to the Southern Hemisphere?
My visa ran out.
Right. Okay.
Otherwise, I'm not sure where I'd be, but my visa rode out. So I travelled for 6 months at the end, all over the world. So, literally 6 months of just solid travel. Yeah. Everywhere you could possibly imagine. It was the greatest time of my life. I wore a bikini for 6 months straight, chased the sun, made the most incredible friendships around the world, and just experienced life to the fullest.
Oh, I love that. And so when you came back, where did you land? Was it Melbourne?
So then when I came back from London, did I land in Sydney or Melbourne first? I think we went back to Sydney. Yes, went back to Sydney after that to live with all of our friends in this massive mansion in Bondi. Which was amazing, great time in my life. And then I started working for the Glassons Group. So that was probably the pivoting moment in my career. I had a meeting with another incredible mentor in my life, Kylie, and her sister Christina, were working at the company at the time, high up. So I had this interview and I looked around and it was leggings and cardigans and I thought, oh, this can't be me.
No.
This can't be me. This was Australia. It was buying from New Zealand at the time. It was just not me. But I was like, I had this strong feeling that this was going to be something really big. Mm-hmm. So I sort of said to her, I can sell, like I'm an amazing seller, I'm a great manager. I'll go into your stores, rechange them all if I can have a buying role. And she was like, kind of laughed at me. And I was like, no, I'm 100% serious. Yeah. So I went into all the underperforming stores and I changed the staff, I changed the product, I started doing big turnovers in those stores. Then I would move to the next one. Then obviously they didn't want me to leave because it was working, but I was still saying, no, I want to be a buyer, I want to be a buyer. There was only one role. There wasn't actually a role in Australia at the time. Yeah. And I just pushed it. And from there, I obviously got myself into the buying rooms and I remember having this test done. So, to be a buyer, and I thought, this is me, this is the moment of my life. Yeah. Anyway, my ADHD and possibly some learning disability started to flare up. Yeah. And I did so badly on the test, I burst into tears afterwards. And then I got this phone call and I thought, maybe I haven't done that bad. So I answered the phone call and they're like, hi, did you just do that test? And I was like, yes. And they were like, do you need a reader writer? And I was like, I don't think I've got any learning disabilities. And they were like, okay. Anyway, so then I had to front up and I thought, I've lost the buying role. Yeah. And then that was a big change where Tim Glasson, who was probably my biggest mentor out of any mentor I've ever had, probably the most talented, incredible men in the world. Yeah. I mean, I think he can stand up against anyone globally in terms of a retailer. Like, he is so switched on. Anyway, he sat down and he goes, well, that wasn't good, was it? And I said, no, it didn't really go the way I thought. And he goes, you know what I can't train is the vision. Yeah. I can't train the creativity and the spark, the magic, the making the soup and doing this. So anyway, I got myself into the buying role and then was a buyer for Australia, and I used to travel obviously every 6 weeks internationally around the world. Yeah. Very great, amazing time of my life. So every 6 weeks we'd do like London, New York, LA, Japan, England, all around the world, and then we'd come back, we'd range it in New Zealand, and then I'd have to do trips around around Australia to all of the states as well, because each state ran differently, and all the product needed to be quite different for that. So that was an incredible time of my life. Forever grateful for Tim and his belief in me. Just a small girl in chucks with ripped jeans, attending board meetings with him, having the support. It taught me how to love myself and back myself.
Totally.
Then I sort of got to a stage where I was like, oh man, I'm actually pretty good at this. So then I obviously left the Glassons group, which was a really hard time because I did love what I did. And I started my own business in Melbourne.
But then obviously you had the vision, you had the experience at that point. And obviously from your mum had amazing work ethic. And
my dad had built the business from the ground up.
Your dad's super creative and talented as well. So you had all of that. And it was time to build your own brand. Yes,
so then just had $50,000 in a dream, and it was wild. I had to pitch to all the brands why they could have me, and I only had a list of 10 brands that I wanted, and it was Ellery, Dion Lee, Dylan Kane, like it was all the hype brands at the time. They didn't want new stockists. They were over, they didn't want to do it. So here's me in my presentation and my slideshows, and then they were kind of like, no. And then I got in front of them and I got all of them. So I was like, okay, amazing. But I only had $50,000 to do a full renovation in my...
Did you buy the building?
No, I leased the building, which was huge. I think it was like $2,500 a week.
Massive.
I had a very small budget, so we renovated it, and Mick did a lot of the work, and I got the ceilings all done, and electricians, and really watching that money because I had such a small spend. But I also had to invest in stock.
Of course.
I had to invest in point of sale and all of those sorts of things as well. So so that was Fro Tribe, and I literally worked 7 days a week. Every week for as long as I can remember, probably the first year and a half, and I built this incredible community. I had the most amazing, beautiful clients that still reach out all the time on Instagram now saying that was such an amazing time, and I curated this destination in Hampton, Melbourne, and then I did online, then I did my own label, and then, so I did that for about 6 years, and then I sold the business.
And you sold it when you'd had the boys, right?
I actually had Alfie, and I took Alfie to all the fashion weeks. He was just like this cool little kid. Then Freddie came, and I was like, oh, okay, I cannot take 2 kids. Like, who am I? So then when Freddie was about six weeks old, I decided to sell, and I sold to my right hand, Cassie, who had been a really instrumental part of the growth in the company, and an incredible human being. Like, she was she's just such a great human being, still is to this day. And then I moved back to New Zealand.
And so what was the reason for the move? Was it the kids?
It was, to be fair, every time I'd come back, my parents got older.
I get that.
Every time my mum looked a bit older, and I'd missed a lot because I'd been in London, and then when I went to the Glassons group, I travelled all the time. So I used to I was always on the go, I was always moving, I was always travelling, I was always hustling. I didn't actually really see my family since I was about 17 years old when I left. So all of a sudden I was like 30... I don't know, what's the math, 34-ish or something, coming back, 35. And I realised how much of the life I had missed of my parents and my siblings.
Of course.
So me and my sister decided to come back from different parts of the world and take over the family company.
Oh, amazing. So that was, that's amazing. And so you went from fashion into furniture.
Yes.
And what was that shift like for you?
It was actually quite liberating because I'd always created fashion. I've always had my own label. I've always been making fashion. And it actually gave me an edge because I was like, everyone's like, no, you can't do that with furniture. I'm like, oh, watch me.
Yeah, of course.
Like I had this well, I had the eye for it, but I could then create whatever I wanted. So our furniture designs really elevated through that period because I challenged our team. Now, our team are the most skilled human beings you'll ever meet. So I was very blessed in that way. But then we built such amazing furniture from it because I didn't have that classical training.
Totally. And so when it comes to challenges of working with family, what's that like on the day-to-day?
Look, it can be really difficult because in stressful times, obviously, you are stressed, you're short, you're frustrated. There's so many times I've been in tears walking out and all dramatic and slamming the door and, all of those sorts of things. it has its challenges. It can be really, really difficult, but it's also really beautiful. Like, I get on incredibly well with my sister. You know, we're like twins. We travel, we do a lot of the business stuff together. And really the only thing we fight about is what we're having for lunch. You know, like, I'm like rolling out like, hey, did you bring your lunch? She's like, yes, I can't be swayed. And then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, hey, let's go get some lunch. And, you know, so that's about as far as we go. But it does have its challenges because it then brings up all these wounds from childhood and you're faced with it. So something that's a small work conversation is then triggered to something else that you're holding on to from the family dynamics. So I have to really try and separate them, and I haven't been very good at it for the first couple of years, but now I'm starting to get a lot better and going, okay, well, I can compartmentalize that. That is actually how I'm feeling about this situation, which isn't related to work.
Gotcha.
And so I just have to kind of keep putting all those hats back on, because as humans, we merge all of that trauma and the lessons and all of that together, and then you put it in a high pressure cooker, which is a work environment, especially through global crises and COVID and all of that stuff. You know, we've been tested in every single way, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, I get that. And so when you think about your life and the challenges that you've been through, and all the healing that you've done, if you look at the last few years when you've really accelerated that, what really was the catalyst for that change and evolution from the party girl in London to like the Amy that I know?
So she was always in there. I've always been spiritual. I did my Reiki Masters probably about 15, 20 years ago. So it's always been there. But I think obviously, you know, one of the big parts of my life is my marriage ending. That really, I met my husband at a very young age. So I didn't really know who I was then. You know, I wasn't the same version.
That's very normal. Woman.
So then I kind of went into it, and I actually had my spiritual growth through my marriage, which then elevated me to a different level. You know, not in terms of being better or worse or anything like that, but you change. You shift and you change, and it becomes slightly different. So I think then once all that support was taken away, when all of that, you know, part of a unit, part of that, I had to really sit with myself and be like, oh my God, it's just me. And then I had these feelings of, have I just created my childhood because that's what my nervous system thinks I should do?
That's fascinating,
So I had to actually look and go, oh my gosh, like, what am I looking for? And I've always looked for more. You know, I've always wanted something really transformative in our life, which we've both spoken about. We didn't want to have any regrets or anything like that. So that made me sit with myself, and I had to really get to know myself. And I think up until then, I'd partied, I'd travelled, I'd filled my life with business and career, and busy was my badge of honour, and I was successful and all these sorts of things. Remove all of that away, and you're actually just faced with who you are.
All the things that you were using to numb who you truly were, and the masks you were wearing had to be looked at.
And I was neurodiverse, which I didn't know until we found out my son was. So through my marriage, I had been a certain type of way, probably rejection, you know, I'd feel rejection stronger. I was probably a little bit overly emotional because I didn't actually understand that I couldn't regulate my brain the same way as others can. So I've had to teach myself how to do that in terms of like missing appointments, being a little bit chaotic. It's physically what would happen, but that would stress out my family life because we didn't know at that time that was there. So I think, could it have been a different situation? If so, maybe, but I didn't know it at that time. So then I found out I was neurodiverse. Then I started to lean into my spirituality more. Then I started to have to love myself and find out who I am and who I want to be on my own. And that was really liberating. There was a lot of, you know, dark moments and quiet moments, crying and, you know, loneliness and lots of goodbyes and lots of shifts and changes and navigating my children and all of those sorts of things. But once I stepped out of it, I was like, okay, this is who I am. You know, and now I've got to know myself. Now I've got to love myself, you know, and not from an arrogant or confident point of view. It's just like, oh, this is who I am. This is who I was meant to be on this planet.
Definitely. And also, you are so spiritually gifted. And, you know, I think you probably didn't recognise it until you started to lean into who you truly are and realise that there is not very many people like you.
I realise that now.
And I know that you, from a young age, knew that you had spiritual gifts.
Yes.
But you had hidden them because obviously they're not talked about generally in society. It's more talked about now. That's why we do what we do. But can you tell everyone a little bit about what it's like to be a clairvoyant and a seer and all of the spiritual gifts that you've got and the real powerful work that you can do to transform someone's life?
The word that comes to mind is peaceful.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem normal because you've seen me when I channel. It's very charged. It's very it's full on.
It's next level.
It's next level.
It's amazing.
But I just feel really deeply gifted that I have these tools to access. Not everybody uses these tools, and I feel like I have a cheat sheet in my life. I can feel things, I can sense things about people, about my future. I can see things on my line. I can see things on other people's lines.
Yeah.
When things are going really bad, I don't sit in the victim now. I sit in the, what is my lesson from here? How can I learn to elevate myself? And then I think with that comes different lessons, and I've had to keep learning and stepping forward and elevating myself into different levels so that I can actually be who I'm meant to be.
Definitely. And the way you use your gifts.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was the question.
I think it's really one of the most fascinating things about you, and it makes you so special and unique, is your ability to essentially close your eyes and channel like a movie screen in front of your face, people's Akashic records.
Sounds wild when you say it. Yeah.
You can see, like you say, timelines. You can see people's guides, their teams. You get messages directly from them.
Yeah.
You can literally unblock and unmask other humans.
Yeah, I guess, and that come with faith in myself.
Yeah.
I had been working with clients for probably 3 or 4 years, and we would sit down and I'd be like, oh, here's your uncle and he died of this, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
And that in time built the confidence up, because I'd be scared to say something because I'm like, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
But then my mentor Jack said to me, you don't give someone a gift and follow them home to see if they like it.
I love that.
And from that moment, I was like, here's your gift, do what you want with it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's completely up to you. But look, I feel really lucky now. I think I used to find it weird, like everybody else. But now, the work that I can do, it's why I do it. Even today before the podcast started, we got to unpack someone's generational things that are getting passed down, and I can see all of those things and I can bring them out, because often what's happening is not from this lifetime. It's from past lives, and everybody's like, why am I so triggered by that? But we bring it all with us. But I feel really lucky. I mean, it is really crazy, and for me, when the energy comes in, I just allow it to happen now. And I've been really clear. I was quite scared at the start because I was scared of spirit and entities and darkness and things like that. I only work in the light.
Yeah.
So my team knows that anybody that comes through, I've got very clear boundaries in spirit, which makes me feel really relaxed to just access any portal, anybody's issues, hurting, wounds in a child, past life, records, anything that's playing out in the now, in disease, in programming, or what's actually stopping them from being the best human that they can ever be. I can just pull it out.
It is honestly amazing.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to touch on as well is, yes, you do that work. Mm-hmm. You also obviously run a large furniture company with your sister and your dad, but also I think that a huge part of your trusting yourself and the gifts activating in a more authentic way is your passion for wellness.
Yes.
And the platform that you've created with Louve.
Yeah.
Not only mixing fashion, but also you on your own wellness journey, from being, a self-proclaimed party girl to now being sober, now having a wellness platform and all of that information. So can you talk us through a little bit about Louve and what it is and why you're so passionate about that?
Well, I guess Louve is like Leaders in the Light. It is so deeply ingrained in what I want the world to do. Yeah. So for me, I sat around and I watched people with Botox, fillers, toxic skincare, toxic clothing, really dysregulated guts, which was affecting depression, hormones, fertility, all of those sorts of things. Yeah. Then COVID came through, vaccines, all of that. So it kind of all led me to this one point where I was like, you know what? We need to change, because I actually deeply care about people. I actually deeply care about females. Yeah. most females I know are in a really bad state in terms of their hormones, preventative disease, diseases on a rise more than we ever have, cancers, heart issues, all of these sorts of things. And it's because we're constantly fueling our body with toxic products. Back in the day, McDonald's chips used to be salt, beef tallow and potato. Now there's about 37 ingredients and it's all chemicals. And it's stuff we're feeding our children, it's stuff we're feeding ourselves, and then we're like, why do I feel lethargic? Why am I tired after 8 hours sleep? You know, we're drinking tap water which is full of lead. It's absolutely full of, it's stripped down from what it is. I mean, we're very lucky to have a clean water system, you know, in New Zealand. So it's, you know, it's not being ungrateful, but there's things that we can do to optimise health.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's educating, because when we optimise our health, everything around us in our life elevates.
Yeah. And it's like, even, you know, like I've got all the crystal product in it. So each piece that I sell on the website is activated. So for you, obviously...
My bracelet.
Yeah.
I've got 2 bracelets, but I'm wearing one.
Yeah. So we put all of what needed to happen inside that crystal. So it's with you every single day. Yeah, so there's like all these things that we can do to better our life, be a better person, be a more optimized human, live longer, live more authentically, but also live a better quality life.
Yeah.
You know?
We need women like you, and this is why Leaders of the Light exists, who are willing to stand up and speak their truth and share their journey of transformation. And the things that they've learned and the challenges that they've faced in order to light the path for other women. And I think you do that so well, because obviously you've gone through a huge amount of identity shifts in your life, and you've bravely, you know, transited through each and continuing to elevate. Which is absolutely amazing.
And I'm actually grateful for every part of my life. Like some of it has been really hard, you know, some of it has been soul destroying, some of it has nearly broken me, you know, but also from that brokenness becomes such a better version of yourself. And the universe is going to constantly lift when you lift your vibration to match it. So for me, I'm like, you know, how can I be spiritual and successful and all of these sorts of things? And then I'm putting toxic skincare on my skin. I'm drinking dirty water. My gut health isn't working. I'm not using supplements. I'm using Botox. It's not a healthy way to live. No. We're masking what our bodies are trying to tell us. So when we remove all of that, we become an optimal human.
And it's interesting because what you find is, as a female entrepreneur particularly, the more you work on yourself and you clear all those weeds out, whether it be inner child trauma.
And they're still there.
Yeah, all of the
You're
stuff,
still working through it.
Trauma, anything like that, the stuff that we carry in, once we start to uncover that and we start to deeply connect with our bodies, it's all part of that process of self-love and that freedom that we feel to be our authentic self. And what I love about you is that your journey to that has been quite quick. It doesn't feel quick in the moment.
No.
But actually there is no magic pill. You have to literally sit in the discomfort to move through it. And that's something that you do and that you share now really authentically, which is inspiring so many people just to want to be better.
Well, we can be good at business, we can be good spiritually, and I think everybody comes into your path for a reason or a season, and people talk about it and it feels cliche, but it really does. Each person that's brought on your path is to elevate you as a human. You have a soul contract with every single person that comes into your path, whether it be a love relationship, whether it be a friend relationship, and they are either there to teach you something in the moment about yourself, to unlock yourself into a next level, or they are there for the long period, you know, like for us, we're deeply connected for a long period in our life.
But you know that because you can see it.
I can see it, yeah. But I can also see...
It's all right for the now.
Yeah. Well, you've stuck with me. It's already predestined, you know. And our lives are predestined, you know. And I think the more we surrender to that and understand that what's meant for us in life is not going to pass us by. You can't physically outrun your soul's purpose. You can't physically outrun a soul contract. It's not humanly possible.
And I love that because your soul's purpose was, we'd spoken about this originally, unconditional self-love. Because you've had lifetimes of learning to love yourself. But it recently changed. Obviously
Sorry, I did outrun that soul contract.
But you did the work that you
a lot of work,
and people came into your life to help you with that. And now tell me a little bit about what your soul's purpose is now.
Well, I guess just going back to that, I actually went really quiet. I went like hermit mode, like through from when my marriage separated until, not that long. I was really isolated in that period because I knew I had to do that work myself. So there was different people brought in for different lessons around that. Sorry, what was the question?
So the question is, tell us about your soul's purpose.
Oh, soul's purpose and why it's changed, yeah. So it was unconditional self-love, and I've spent lifetimes and lifetimes trying to love me for who I am, which is ADHD. It's a man generator, it's wild, it's a bit chaotic, all of those sorts of things. So I actually had to do a lot of work to get to that point. So now what it's done is I was always a soul teacher, which we're incarnated into this world to lead a different way of living. So that is my soul's purpose now. So I had achieved my self-love one, and I've moved on to lifting the consciousness of the planet and leading the way in terms of leadership and spirituality. So with that, a spiritual one doesn't have to be doing a cacao ceremony on the beach at 6 a.m. If that's what spirituality doesn't look like to you, that's fine. It doesn't mean there's a cookie cutter. I mean, I'm incredibly gifted with my seeing and stuff like that, but I'm spiritual lazy because I don't have to do anything else.
I love that you say that you're spiritual.
I am. I mean, I literally, I get all these symbols and stuff, and I do this with people. I'm like, I'm going to use this all the time. This is going to be amazing. Like with the moon stuff. Never touched it since. Because I just close my eyes and everything is there for me.
I feel like, though, as you evolve and that spiritual side of you becomes more prevalent, frequent in terms, you've got a very full life. So I think once that becomes a huge part of who you are and you lead, in that space, that will probably be something that it becomes a focus for you as well.
Well, I think the only thing left to learn, and I've actually never talked about this even with you, so I'm surprised I'm going here, but anyway, I am. I think for me, I am really excited to step into my feminine. So into a more submissive role. I have always been the alpha female. I've always been the money generator. I have always been the one leading. I am really excited for the next phase of my life to be able to step back and be led. So that's something that's massive for me. It's something that I've never seen in my lifetime. I've definitely never had it at this point. But I know that part of my soul's desire and the deep self-love of what I deserve is stepping into that feminine and allowing myself to surrender enough to be looked after. Now that's,
I love that. That is deep.
And that's massive for me as an alpha female. It is. And I think it just happened here, which was nice.
Oh, I love that for you. But it also doesn't mean, because obviously with the masculine and feminine energy, that feminine energy, they're definitely, it doesn't mean you get rid of the masculine.
No.
It means there becomes this balance where...
We're 50-50.
Where you still have roles of leadership, but in different ways. But that feminine really allows you to step into that flow and just to be without pushing, chasing, hustling, grinding.
And I'm not chasing anymore,
Those are the things that we've both done in our lives in order to prove ourselves. Because we were looking outside of ourselves for validation when that true validation comes from within.
And I used to think it was weak because I've always been in my masculine. I thought it was weak. I thought, how could you surrender or be there? And I can in some ways, but I've also always had to switch back into that fight or flight high masculine role. But I'm really excited for that soft era that's coming.
I love that. You've done the work. So
and I'm also not going to settle for less than that. So for me, this is where it's really difficult because I'm I'm not going to settle.
No.
I am
I've got extraordinarily high standards.
Yeah, I do, but I'm also I want an evolved man who is awake, but he's also he's very aware of himself. And I'm really excited for that because I'm happy to then be able to step into it, but I've never been held like that or had the space to hold like that.
And then can you imagine what you will be able to do, what you've done already with building multi-million-dollar businesses and building your own brands, multiple brands, and all of the success that you've had? Imagine what this next chapter is going to be.
I'm going to have to start wearing dresses.
When you fully, you don't have to wear dresses.
No, but I am trying,
When you really fully step into that alignment with who you're truly here to be, what that looks like. It's going to be next level because like I said at the beginning, you are honestly one of the most amazing human beings that I have known, and I'm so grateful that you are my friend.
Yes.
And
you're stuck with me forever.
And we get to do this together because you've got a great story, a story that's really like a lot of people will be able to resonate with.
Yeah.
But also, the courage that you've had to step into who you truly are and lead in the light. Is exciting, and I for one am excited to meet this new man and to see what we create together and what you create in the next chapter of your life. So,
but I also think healing is messy, and that's okay.
Yeah,
we have to work through it and keep sort of getting there. But it is incredibly messy. It doesn't and
it doesn't end.
No, it doesn't.
It just keeps going.
Yeah,
and that's what we're here to do. We're here to share this journey, our journey, on what it looks like, and so thank you for sharing a little bit about that. This was just a really great opportunity to hear more about you and all the amazing things you've done.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm excited. It's going to be a wild ride.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us on Leaders in the Light podcast.
If today's conversation sparked something within you, take a moment to reflect, integrate, and share it with someone who needs it. We're here to rise together in truth, in purpose, and in power.
Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and come connect with us over on Instagram at Leaders in the Light. We'll be here, holding the light until you're ready to rise again.